So in the last couple of videos, we've been talking about how to measure behavior. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about how to display those measures of behavior. Because you can measure all the behavior that you want, but unless you can display it in a way that is usable by the human mind, recording all that behavior and measuring all that behavior really doesn't have a purpose. So today we're going to start delving into graphical displays of behavior, and we're going to start with the benefits you can accrue by actually graphing your behavior. Hi, I'm Dr. Igor Juricevic, and this is Functional Analysis of Behavior 1. Let's go. So we're going to be looking at graphical displays of data today, specifically graphical displays of measured behavioral data. And Parsonson and Bayer mentioned that the function of the graph is to communicate. That is, descriptions and summaries of data that enable rapid and accurate analysis of the facts. So we have all this recorded data in some form, probably numeric form, probably a table of data points. And now we're going to see what is the benefit of taking all that recorded data and putting it into a graphical display. Why do we even try to do that as behavior analysis? All right, so we're going to take a look at the 7 benefits of graphically displaying your data, graphically displaying your recorded behaviors. So let's get going with number 1. All right, so the first benefit of graphical displays of data comes from actually creating the graph. And creating a graph of the measures of behavior gives the researcher or the practitioner immediate access to an ongoing visual record of behavior. That is, it gives them access to an up-to-date visualization, an up-to-date record of what is going on with the patient. And this then allows them to make treatment decisions that are very importantly responsive to the participant's performance. So for example, let's take a look at this graphical display of data. Now you can see that here on the y-axis, we have behavior. And we're going to keep this very general. We're going to keep this very abstract just to kind of show you the power that you have in interpreting these graphs and how much information they can communicate to you. Because we don't even know what this behavior is. It could be anything. The point is that it doesn't matter. The graphs work the same way whether we know what the behavior is or not. So we're going to keep it abstract. So it's simply certain levels of behavior are occurring across a certain number of trials that's on the x-axis. And our first benefit, as we mentioned, is that creating a graph gives the behavior researcher and practitioners immediate access to that ongoing visual record of behavior. So if you have this graph here, you can see trials 1 through 5, there has been very little change in the level of behavior. But all of a sudden, trials 6 through 10, there is a drop in behavior. And if you were constructing this graph in time and ongoing as an ongoing record of behavior, then you would have seen that drop. And that would have allowed you to make decisions that are responsive to that drop. So you can respond to any changes in the participant's performance. All right, benefit number 2. So the second benefit is that direct and continual contact with the data in readily analyzable format enables the researcher to explore interesting variations in behavior as they occur. So before we were talking about being responsive to the participant, now we're talking about the benefits to science. So if you see something interesting happen in the behavior, you can immediately respond to that. You can immediately explore interesting things. What caused that decrease in behavior? What caused that sudden drop that occurred in trial 6? This allows the research to go forward by allowing us to come up with the interesting questions by taking a look at what is actually happening with the behavior. Number 3. So the third benefit of graphically displaying the data has to do with data analysis. And when you just have numbers, when you just have records in numbers of what your behavior is, then you need to resort to statistical analysis. But as soon as you graph it, all of a sudden you can do visual analysis. You can basically look at the data and make decisions as to whether or not your behavior has changed over time. And when you compare visual analysis to statistical analysis, visual analysis takes less time. It takes you milliseconds to make a decision and see that the trials 6 through 10 have lower levels of behavior or decreasing levels of behavior. Whereas if I was to do a statistical analysis on this, it would take me much more time. So visual analysis takes less time. Visual analysis is relatively easy to learn, and we're going to learn some of the systematic methods of visual analysis in the next video. Visual analysis does not have an arbitrary level of significance for behavior change. You make that decision as to whether or not you see a behavior change rather than relying on an arbitrary level of significance, such as an alpha level, for deciding whether or not there's a behavior change. And then the last advantage of visual analysis over statistical analysis require the data to meet statistical assumptions. So we might not actually have enough data here in this example to actually run statistics, but to do a visual analysis, you don't have to meet those assumptions, so you can have greater freedom to do the analyses that you need to do. So for example, in a visual analysis, I can immediately, very easily, without having to learn a lot about statistics, without setting an arbitrary level of significance, without requiring my data to meet assumptions, I can see that this data pattern indicates that whatever happened at trial 6 started to decrease the behavior. Whereas this data pattern, nothing happened at trial 6 that decreased the behavior. So I can make those visual interpretations without having to rely on statistics if I have these graphical displays. Number 4, visual analysis allows the identification of robust, powerful behavior changes. So one of the drawbacks of statistics is it tells you whether behavior is different in, for example, trials 6 through 10 versus 1 through 5. It would tell you if there's a difference in that behavior level, but it won't tell you how large the difference is. And one of the benefits of visual analysis is that you can immediately see whether the change is large and robust or whether it's smaller and more less reliable. So in this first example here, that behavior change that began at trial 6, that is a large and robust behavior change. However, in this example, you can see the behavior change is much less. It's not as robust. It's not going to be as reliable. And again, those are the kind of decisions you can very easily make when you have that graphical display of behavior. Number 5. All right, so the fifth benefit of graphs is that they enable and encourage independent judgments and interpretations of the meaning and significance of behavior change. And again, this is as compared to statistical analyses. Statistical analyses tend to be all or nothing. You either have significance or you don't have significance. And in reality, once somebody reads that there is significance or there is not significance, they very rarely go beyond that to look at the data in a deeper way. So these graphs actually encourage you and give you the ability to make those independent judgments. So if somebody says that this data change is significant and you take a look at it, you might say to yourself, okay, it might be significant statistically, but I can now make independent judgments, and I don't think that behavior change is very large, or I don't think that behavior change is very robust. And it encourages those independent judgments and interpretations of that meaning of what is going on with these behavior changes. Number 6. All right, so graphs are very easy to understand. And even if you don't have any experience with graphs, within a few minutes of being instructed on how to read a graph, you can basically get the gist of how to explore and interpret graphs such as these. And that makes them an excellent tool for giving feedback to the people who are doing the behavior. So giving feedback to the people who are doing the behavior is extremely important because research has shown that this could actually improve behavior performance. So if I was working with a participant, by giving them the feedback and saying, hey, look, what happened at trial 6, that led to a decrease in this behavior. So we want to make sure that this behavior continues to decrease. Let's take an example where the behavior is a behavior we're trying to get rid of. So we can tell them, hey, whatever we started doing in 6, let's pay more attention to that. Let's pay more attention to that feedback. Let's pay more attention to that contingency. Let's pay more attention to whatever happened in 6 and try to keep doing it. And in this way, by giving feedback to the individuals who are actually doing the behavior through these graphs, using them as a means to communicate to them, we can actually help improve their behavior even further than just a treatment alone. And finally, we have number 7. Oh yes, 7. I like this one. This one was hard to make, but I got there in the end. So we are going to spend just one more second looking at it. Oh yeah. All right, 7. So the final benefit of graphical displays of data is that they facilitate communication of behavior change among a wide variety of people. So graphs help everybody to understand behavior change, not just scientists, not just trained applied behavior analysts. They can help everybody. So when you need to communicate what's going on in a patient's treatment, if you need to communicate that to other professionals, other doctors, pediatric nurses, if you need to communicate that to their parents to help explain the effects of the treatment, if you need to communicate that to teachers to help them in their education, if you need to communicate that with politicians to help change policies in your area, whatever you need to do, graphs are an excellent way to communicate with people who aren't trained professionals in the area, because again, graphs are very easy to interpret with even minimal amounts of instruction on how to read a particular graph. All right, so there we had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 benefits of graphical displays of data. Thank you for keeping along with me on today's video. Next time, we're going to take a look at how to actually start interpreting these graphs. Today we touched on it a little bit, but next time we're going to go through a systematic procedure that you can use for interpreting graphs. But until then, thank you for joining me on this trip, and I will see you next time. Stay frosty, stay functional. It's too much. Get to the point. Get to the point. All right. So we're going to be looking at graphical displays of data today,